Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Indie Alaska is an innovative weekly web series capturing the diverse and colorful lifestyle of Alaskans. Real stories of everyday Alaskans at work and play. Supported in part by Alyeska Pipeline Service Company.
Cook Inlet Tug and Barge is a marine transportation company specializing in harbor services with a primary marketing focus on the Port of Anchorage, providing their customers with quality-based service specifically tailored to their needs.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening, I'm David Kramer here with your Alaska weather. As always, please visit our website at arh.noaa.gov, getting updates to our forecast there, and you can check out if we have any watches, warnings, or advisories out for the state. Also call our weather info line at 1-800-472-0391, getting updates to that means as well. And you can follow us on both Twitter and on Facebook. Starting off, we'll take a look at some satellite imagery out over the Bering Sea. We have our main low pressure system here that is still tracking to the east, but bringing up a lot of moisture from the south to areas all throughout the Alaska Peninsula, stretching down into the Aleutian Islands. And way out west, we have some northerly flow, bringing some isolated showers out there to the western Aleutian Islands. Taking a look on the eastern side, out in the Gulf of Alaska, you can see that we have a little weak low that is bringing some cloud cover and a rain to the Panhandle area and up towards Yakutat as well. But further to the south, we have the next low coming in that is bringing up some moisture and some more rain that's going to get there tomorrow, bringing in a lot of more precip to the Panhandle area. And then finally, we'll take a look out over mainland part of the state where you can see a lot of lower clouds over much of the interior and north slope. And then as we get closer towards the YK Delta area, some cloud cover there, bringing in some isolated rain and snow showers. More rain as we get further to the south, a little bit more snow as we get to the north. So taking a deeper look at that, we can see our weak low that is out in the eastern part of the Gulf, bringing in some rain to parts of the Panhandle, especially along the coast, with the heaviest part of that being along the coastline. As we move along the Gulf Coast, we do have some isolated showers throughout much of Prince William Sound, especially in the Cordova area and eastern parts of the Kenai Peninsula. Not a whole lot of that making it over to the western parts of the Kenai or Cook Inlet areas. As we push further to the north, once we get north of the Alaska Range, we have some isolated snow showers throughout places in the interior, all the way from the east and up towards Fort Yukon area, all the way out west towards the Ambler area. So you get a little bit further south in the YK Delta area, some isolated rain and snow showers there, getting a little bit warmer and warmer still as we get closer towards Iliamna, some isolated rain showers there. Up along the Arctic coast, however, we do have snow mixed with fog with some chance of some light freezing drizzle mixed in there as well. And then going a little bit further south towards the Point Hope area, isolated snow showers there. All the way down all around the Aleutian Islands, northerly flow bringing showers to the Bering side of those islands especially. And then as we get further off to the east, our larger low bringing up some warmer air and some rain from the south, bringing that in from the Alaska Peninsula down into the eastern Aleutian Islands. As we move into the night hours, that low is going to continue to move off to the east, pushing that rain now all the way towards Kodiak Island area and all throughout the peninsula down into the eastern Aleutian Islands, starting to push its way into the Bristol Bay area, mixing with snow as it does. However, out in the western and central Aleutian Islands, we are going to see that northerly flow continuing to bring rain showers out there. And that northerly flow from the North Bering Sea all the way down into the central Bering Sea, bringing in a mixture of rain and snow showers there. More snow as we get further to the north. So we move up along the west coast of the state, however, YK Delta area, cold enough there to see snow showers, and that extends all the way north up along the west coast until we get to the Arctic slope where we have the snow and fog mixture with some light freezing drizzle possible from Barrow to the west. But as we get further off to the east, just that mixture of snow and fog out there. Then pushing down into the Brooks Range, further south into the interior, isolated snow showers expected throughout the night. And then down in western parts of the Alaska Range and areas around Talkeetna, going to see some isolated snow showers there, extending down the Alaska Range towards just north of the Iliamna area. As we move down into the south central, a mixture of rain and snow expected anywhere from the Anchorage area down through the Kenai Peninsula and out across the Prince William Sound area into around Valdez, but switching over to rain as we get closer to Cordova and continuing along the Gulf Coast into the Yakutat area. A little bit lighter in northern parts of the Panhandle, but picking up once again as we get into the central and southern parts as this next system is starting to push that rain into the area overnight. And as we move into Friday, that rain will have spread through much of the Panhandle, but not quite to northern parts such as Haines, and Yakutat going to start to clear up as well. As we move further west along the Gulf Coast, rain expected all the way along the coastline, but drying out as we get further inland. However, on the eastern side of the Kenai Peninsula, especially in the higher elevations, mixture of snow expected with that rain as well. So we get further north into the Alaska Range and throughout much of the interior, not a whole lot of precipitation for Friday. Should be pretty nice there, but as we get back into the Brooks Range and further up along the Arctic coast, the snow and fog mixture expecting to remain out there throughout the day on Friday. And as we move down the west coast of the state, Kotzebue Sound area, going to see that starting to transition over into more showery types of precip, and then that extends through the Seward Peninsula, down through the Norton Sound and out west towards St. Lawrence Island as well. As we get further to the south into the YK Delta area and out towards St. Matthew Island, starting to mix with rain there, expecting a mix of rain and snow showers. Down in the Bristol Bay areas, extending up into the lower Kuskokwim, expecting to see rain and snow showers there as well. And then switching over to just rain as we get closer towards the Pribilof Islands and down into the central and eastern Aleutian Islands and the Alaska Peninsula as well. Then as we move into Saturday, we have a new system coming up from the west, bringing rain back to the western Aleutian Islands and some to the central Aleutian Islands as well. Northerly flow over the central and eastern Bering, bringing in some showery precipitation, primarily rain from the Pribilofs down further south into the eastern Aleutian Islands, Alaska Peninsula area. But as we get over the mainland, starting to see that become a mixture of rain and snow, and then in the lower Kuskokwim Valley and northern places of the YK Delta, expecting that to be just some snow showers. As you move up further to the north, most of the snow staying off of the coastline, but as you get out towards the Tin City area or down by Gamble or up by Point Hope, going to see some snow showers through those areas, and then along the Arctic coastline, expecting to see snow linger throughout the day on Saturday, down into eastern parts of the Brooks Range as well. But as we saw with Friday in through the interior, not expecting any precipitation at this time. Should be pretty nice there, and that's going to extend down into much of the south central as well until we get down to eastern parts of the Kenai Peninsula, where there are some isolated rain and snow showers expected there. Transitioning over to rain as we get closer to Kodiak Island, and then from Yakutat all throughout the Panhandle, expecting some heavier rain as we have that system moving up from the south, bringing a lot of warmer air and moisture up with that, expecting to continue throughout the day, all day on Saturday. Switching over to look at some temperatures now, and this is as of 2 p.m. in the mid-50s there, the highest, getting a little bit warmer there for Ketchikan, 54 degrees. But colder along the coastline and further to the north, Haines at 50, Yakutat 47 degrees. As we look out towards the south central part of the state, temperatures along the coastline getting up into the mid-40s there, a little bit colder as we get further inland. Talkeetna 40 degrees, 39 degrees for Kenai, and 33 a little bit colder there at Glen Allen. Moving into the interior part of the state, temperatures primarily in the 20s for most locations. Fairbanks a little warmer as of 2 p.m., 31 degrees there. But as we move up north through the pass, only seeing 16 degrees. Then all the way along the Arctic coast, seeing temperatures in the 20, a little bit colder there at Dead Horse, 21 degrees there. Getting warmer as we get further off to the west until we get down around the Kotzebue Sound area, only getting up into the 20s there. Shishmaref a little bit warmer there, 28 degrees. And then down around Norton Sound, we have temperatures anywhere around the 30s, a little bit warmer there at Nome, 31 degrees. Gamble, 34 degrees. Taking a look now at the southwest part of the state, temperatures in the YK Delta area getting to be around 30 degrees, 30 at Bethel. Down in the Bristol Bay area, just a little bit warmer there, just above freezing. Dillingham actually at freezing, 32 degrees there. King Salmon 34, getting down into the Cold Bay area. There's going to see 40 degrees, Sand Point 39 degrees, and warmer as we get into the Aleutian Islands. Dutch Harbor 45 degrees, as are Atka and Adak, and then Shimia 46 degrees way out to the west. A little bit colder for the Pribilof Islands, 36 for St. Paul. So looking into our low temperatures for tonight, not a whole lot of difference for the Pribilof. It's going to stay around 35 degrees for a low for St. Paul. And as we move into the Aleutian Islands, dropping down into the lower 40s there, all the way down to 38 degrees for Dutch Harbor, staying around the mid to upper 30s for the Alaska Peninsula, 36 degrees expected low for Cold Bay. And as we move a little bit further east into the Bristol Bay area, dropping down to around 30 degrees, especially as we get to the more interior locations. A little bit warmer there for Iliamna, 36 degrees expected. YK Delta area, colder more inland. Bethel getting down to 23 degrees, but warmer as we get further off to the west, 30 degrees expected low for Macoriac. Around the Norton Sound area, lower 20s expected there, 22 for Nome. Warmer out towards the Gamble area, 32 degrees expected low tonight for them. Around 20 degrees for the Kotzebue Sound area, colder off to the east, warmer as we get further to the west. Shishmaref getting down to 27 degrees, as well as Point Hope. And then along the Arctic coastline, dropping down into the lower 20s for many locations. Barrow down to 22 degrees. Out over the Brooks Range, coldest through the pass, still getting down to 6 degrees, 12 for Arctic Village. As you drop down into the interior, into the teens, or up to as the 20s there, 21 for Fairbanks getting down to tonight. And then down in the south central part of the state, dropping down to the lower 30s, a little bit warmer as we get along the coastline. Homer dropping down to 39 degrees tonight, Cordova down to 40, but still colder at Glen Allen, getting down all the way to 18 degrees tonight there. Down in the southeast part of the state, dropping down around 40 degrees, a little bit warmer further to the south, that low coming up, bringing in the warmer air. Ketchikan only getting down to 47 degrees. However, we have places like Yakutat dropping all the way down to 34. For highs tomorrow, staying in the southeast part of the state, getting back up to around 50 degrees. Once again, warmer further to the south, as high as 53 degrees there. And then as we move over the south central part of the state, getting into the mid 40s, a little bit colder still in the Copper River Basin, 29 degrees for Glen Allen. Up in the interior part of the state, getting up to around freezing for tomorrow. Colder as we get further to the north. Bettles at 26 degrees for a high tomorrow. Through the pass, 14 degrees for the high, and then up along the Arctic coast, a little bit warmer there, mid 20s. And as we get down into the Kotzebue Sound area, mid-20s, warmer as we get further to the west, getting up to around 30 degrees there. Throughout the Norton Sound area, all around freezing for tomorrow, as well as the YK Delta area, with Antioch getting a little bit warmer, up to 35 degrees there. Up into the 40s as we get into the Bristol Bay and Alaska Peninsula area, in the mid-40s for the peninsula as well, and then getting up into the mid-40s throughout the Aleutian Islands, all the way up to 45 degrees for Shimia. St. Paul, however, only getting up to around 41. And then way over here for Kodiak Island, Kodiak City, getting up to 47 degrees. Switching it up now, take a look at the aviation weather. With all of that low pressure system bringing in some precipitation and lower clouds, and then some of those showers moving in from the north, going to see widespread NVFR conditions throughout the Bering Sea, Aleutian Islands, and west coast of the state. That's going to extend all the way up to the north slope as well, with some IFR conditions due to that fog happening all the way along the coastline there. So look out over the remainder of mainland Alaska, not a whole lot. Should be VFR conditions throughout most locations. As we get further south towards the Iliamna area, we are going to start to see some of those NVFR conditions push up in eastern parts of the Kenai Peninsula as well. And then down in the southeast, NVFR conditions with some occasional IFR there as we get further inland. Through the passes, though, Anaktuvik should be VFR for tomorrow, as well as Adigan Pass. Lake Clark and Merrill will both start off MVFR but improve throughout the day. Rainy Pass should be VFR for tomorrow, as well as Windy Pass. Isabel should be VFR for tomorrow, and Mentasta will remain VFR throughout the day. Tanita Pass should also be VFR. However, Portage will start off MVFR but improve throughout the day as well. And then Chilkoot and White should both remain VFR for tomorrow. Taking a look at our freezing level, we can see that we have the warmer air with those higher freezing levels coming in from the south towards the southeast. And we do have our main surface freezing line hugging just to the northern parts of the Panhandle and then stretching along the Gulf Coast down into the Bristol Bay area, stretching back up through the northern Bering Sea and then out over Russia. We do have another area of warm air coming in from the southwest that's bringing in, we can see again with those higher freezing levels there. Taking a look now at our icing, the only area of concern is out from the YK Delta area down through Bristol Bay and stretching out to the northern parts of the Gulf of Alaska and up to around the Alaska Range. A little bit higher above 9,000 feet for that icing as we get further to the east, a little bit lower above 7,000 feet further off to the west. Taking a look at our jet now over mainland Alaska, not a whole lot of activity, but as we saw yesterday, we have some of that over the Panhandle area, about 100 knots there from a southwesterly direction. And we also have the 130 knot jet a little bit further to the south, but dropping off to around 80 knots as we get over Canada. With our low out over the Bering, we have a jet of about 120 knots coming out of a northwesterly direction, going through the Aleutian Islands, but the main part of the jet getting up to as high as 145 knots, staying to the south of the islands. Looking at our 9,000-foot winds, we have northerly flow out over the Bering Sea, anywhere from 20 knots, getting higher as we move further to the east, up to as high as 45 knots there. Over mainland part of the state, a little bit weaker flow, southeasterly direction around 10 knots, getting up to as high as 25 knots as we start to shift directions out of a more easterly direction, moving out over the water. And then out over the southeast part of the state, pretty weak flow for the most part, around 10 knots, but right along the coastline we have some stronger winds getting as high as 40 knots there. And then tomorrow as we drop down to 3,000 feet, similar story, stronger winds as we get along the coastline there around 50 knots. But that drops down pretty quickly as we get overland down to 10 or 20 knots there. Out over mainland part of the state, throughout much of the area, 10 knots out of an easterly direction, getting up to as high as 25 knots as we get closer to the Brooks Range and Arctic coast. And then as we move out over the Bering Sea, switching, becoming more northerly, weaker out west around 15 knots there, getting up to as high as 35 knots out over the central Bering Sea and the central Aleutian Islands. Taking a look at our turbulence for tomorrow, because of those stronger winds, we do have some turbulence from the central Aleutian Islands extending out to the western parts of the Alaska Peninsula. That is below 4,000 feet there. Over mainland Alaska, not going to see any turbulence for tomorrow, but in the southeast, especially in the southern parts of the Panhandle, we are going to see some of that moderate turbulence with those stronger winds along the coastline below 6,000 feet there. And if you stay with us, we'll be back shortly for the marine forecast.
A partial solar eclipse, and say goodbye to Saturn.
Hey there, stargazers. I'm Dean Regas, astronomer for the Cincinnati Observatory.
And I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Plot Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida. We're here to help you find your way around the sky tonight. Hey Dean, we've got a nice, rare celestial event coming up.
I'm listening.
You want to hear the good news or the bad news first?
The good news, the good news.
Okay, on Thursday, October 23rd, we will have a partial solar eclipse. The new moon will cover a portion of the sun's disk and make a dramatic sight for those living in the western half of the country.
That is good news. I'm excited. But wait, what's the bad news?
Well, the bad news is that the Midwest will have a hard time viewing it and the East Coast will not be able to see it at all.
That is bad news. So everyone west of the Mississippi, get ready. This is the eclipse for you. For everyone else, we can give you a preview of this dramatic eclipse as well as take one last look at Saturn for the season.
Let's show you.
For solar eclipses, location is very important. First, let's look at the sky on October 23rd from Miami, Florida. We're looking west at 6 p.m. Let's zoom in on the sun to see if we can catch the eclipse.
Now remember to always use official, certified, safe solar viewing methods whenever looking at the sun. Even a brief, unprotected glance can damage your eyes.
As we advance time, the moon will appear to slide in front of the sun and take a bite out of it. And then?
What was that?
That would be the ground. From Miami, the sun will set just as the eclipse begins, and that blasted western horizon will get in the way. If only we had some means of traveling west really, really fast to see more of this eclipse.
We have skyboards?
Oh, yeah. Let's fly.
Okay, now we're out in Seattle, Washington, facing south at 1 p.m. Presuming it's not raining, let's zoom in to the sun again. employing our safe solar filters, and we can see that the first contact of the moon will happen at about 1:35 p.m. The moon will keep covering more of the sun until about 3 p.m., when over half of the sun's surface will be obscured.
The moon will continue on its way, and the sun will return to its normal circular self at 4:20 p.m. So, we traveled far enough west to see the entire partial solar eclipse. For eclipse times where you live, check our website www.stargazersonline.org for all the info.
I'm sorry to say you stargazers in Boston, Baltimore, and Boca Raton will have to watch a live web stream of this eclipse. Check out www.ustream.tv.
But for you stargazers in Seattle, Sacramento, and San Diego, get your authorized eclipse glasses ready and see it for yourself.
A partial solar eclipse is really cool, but it can't compare to the big one, a total solar eclipse. These are so rare that we haven't had one in the United States since July 11th, 1991.
And that one was only visible in Hawaii.
You were in Hawaii in 1991?
I wish. So, I'm not going to miss the next one. I already marked my calendar for August 21st, 2017. On that day, if you're in the right place at the right time and it's not cloudy, you will see the moon block out the entire surface of the sun.
It will be the most amazing sight you've ever seen. The light turns an eerie shade, planets and stars become visible in the daytime, and the sun will be replaced by a perfect black circle.
Ooh, it gives me chills just thinking about it.
Less than 3 years away. Here's something for all our stargazers. Saturn is heading off into the sunset, and this may be the last week for you to see it.
That's right, James. You'll need a clear view to the western horizon to see Saturn just after sunset. And I mean just after sunset. There it is, low in the west-southwestern sky.
Let's zoom in on Saturn one last time.
Ah, that is planetary perfection.
For you early birds, you'll see Saturn pop out again into the morning sky in the dark, cold month of December. Until then, look for the partial solar eclipse on October 23rd.
Keep looking up.
Welcome back to the Marine Forecast. We'll start off with a quick look at the ice edge. We do have some new ice that has formed overnight along the North Slope coast. There are some stronger winds, as we'll see later, just off the coastline, but right along the coast, winds have been pretty calm, which allows for some flash freezing, allowing the ice to extend out about 25 nautical miles. So keep an eye on that if you're in those locations along the Arctic coastline. We do still have some ice around the Kotzebue Sound area and northern parts of the Norton Sound area that has formed in the last week or so. So keep that in mind as well, that new ice is forming further to the south. Taking a look now at the marine forecast for the southeast part of the state. Some stronger winds out of the southeast near Ketchikan with 9-foot seas, and the stronger seas are further towards the south along more of the open areas, open waters there. Northerly winds as we get further to the north, 20 to 25 knots there, with some higher gusts from areas south of Juneau towards Petersburg. As we get out into eastern parts of the Gulf, more easterly flow there, 15 to 25 knots with seas getting as high as 10 feet. And then near Yakutat, we do have some winds out of the northeast around 20 knots with some stronger gusts out of Disenchantment Bay. Then as we look into Saturday, we do have some flow. The southeasterly winds are extending now further to the north in the inside waters, 25 to 35 knots with the stronger winds further to the south. Still northerly flow north of Juneau around 25 knots there. So get out into parts of the Gulf, getting up out of a southeasterly direction up to as high as 40 knots with seas getting up to around 14 feet there, dropping off as we get further to the northeasterly flow around 20 knots near Yakutat with still some stronger gusts out of the bay. Moving towards the south central now, we have more northeasterly flow, 15 to 25 knots most locations, weaker as we get further to the north, stronger as we get out to northern parts of the Gulf. Seas only getting from 6 feet to around 9 feet, stronger as we get further to the north. Further off in the Cook Inlet area, dropping down into Shelikof Strait, seas a little bit weaker, only 4 to 6 feet there. As we move into Saturday, flow becoming a little bit more northerly, 10 to 15 knots further out to the west as we get out into the Gulf, getting up to as high as 20 knots out of a northeasterly direction, becoming more northerly as we get further to the south. Seas getting as high as 8 feet south of Cordova. Then on Friday for the Alaska Peninsula, flow out of a northeasterly direction in Bristol Bay at 15 knots, becoming more northerly, 25 knots as we get further to the southwest. And then south of King Cove area, north winds, 35 knots there with 13-foot seas. Weaker seas as we get further to the north, 3 feet in the Bristol Bay area. Then on Saturday, flow becoming more northerly or northwesterly, anywhere from 20 to 30 knots, weakest as we get closer to the Bristol Bay area. Seas stronger as we get out towards the west, up to as high as 12 feet. Then for the Aleutian Islands, northwesterly flow is a dominant feature, 35 to 40 knots, a little bit weaker as we get further off to the west, dropping down to as low as 25 knots, closer towards Shemya. Seas strongest on the Pacific side, up to as high as 17 feet. For Saturday, switching up, becoming southerly flow up to as high as 30 knots near Shemya. Northwesterly flow continuing out east up to as high as 35 knots there. And then seas strongest out east up to as high as 13 feet. Out over the west coast, northerly flow anywhere from 20 to 30 knots, strongest out west. Seas getting up to as high as 10 feet. Freezing spray up towards the Bering Strait area. That freezing spray will continue up there with northerly winds 25 to 30 knots. As we move out along the Arctic coast, northeasterly flow 25 knots throughout all locations, with seas getting as high as 8 feet. Freezing spray throughout all locations as well. And then on Saturday, that freezing spray continuing. Northwesterly flow predominant, 20 to 25 knots. Seas highest out west around 8 feet there. Taking a quick look at our tonight's weather, we have a low bringing up some rain for the southeast part of the state, diminishing a little bit further to the north, but picking back up as we get along the Yakutat area and other parts of the northern Gulf Coast, becoming more mixed with snow as we get into the Kenai Peninsula and other areas of the south central, becoming snow showers as we move into the interior, up along the Arctic coast, starting to be more mixed with fog, and there's a chance as we get further to the west that there could be some light freezing drizzle there as well. Showers throughout the Bering Sea and Aleutian Islands, becoming more rain as we get into the Aleutian Islands, extending out towards Kodiak Island. With Alaska Weather, I'm David Kramer.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
It's never too early to set expectations and goals for your child's education. The UA College Savings Plan provides opportunities that can help you reach your educational savings goals. Save in Alaska. Study anywhere. There is more information available by calling 1-888, the number 4, and then Alaska. This message sponsored by the UA College Savings Plan.